Happy Sunday everyone! Welcome to my video. I'm really excited to get into today's two questions. The first one was sent in by Danny, and Danny wanted to know how I got into the big publication on Medium, Forge. And the second question was sent in by Rachel. Thank you, Rachel. Rachel wanted to know the best strategy to be successful on Medium. So these are quite big questions, so I decided the best way to tackle them was to just do two questions again this week and just really go all in on those. I am so excited to dive in. All right, let's get started. So the first question from Danny was how to get into the big Medium publications. So I am lucky enough to have been accepted to two big Medium in-house publications, Forge, one of the newer ones, and Human Parts, which is one of the older, more established ones. But let's back up and give a bit of background to people who might not know what a Medium publication is or why it's special. Anyone can start a Medium publication. Anyone can say, I want to have a group of stories and I want to publish them not just from me, but from myself and other people as well, and I want it all to be under a particular theme. So for example, one of my friends is the editor of Jane Austen's Wastebasket. She publishes humor, stuff like that, like historic humor, literary humor. I regularly contribute to Better Marketing. That's run by Nicholas Gotka, who has been on Medium a while, and it's all about like how to do better marketing. And those all publications are great. The benefit of submitting to publications is that you get access to a bunch of followers who follow the publication but might not follow you, and that means they'll get exposed to your story and you might get more reads, more views, potentially more follows. That's all great. The downsides are you might get rejected, you might not be a good fit, or you might not know when they're going to publish your story. So if you're trying to stick to a strict deadline, it's a bit annoying. Medium publications are Medium in-house publications are something different. They're a step above that. So Medium, I think this summer, started pushing their own in-house publications and put behind it all the force, all the editorial force that they have. So not only do tons of people follow the in-house Medium publications, but also they can put it on the homepage, they can distribute it more heavily. It's kind of like a stamp of approval that you've been accepted to this Medium publication, this in-house Medium publication. So if you get into one, it is really going to do some numbers and it's going to do incredible things for your story, for your exposure as a writer on Medium, and if you're anything like me, your ego. It felt incredible. So let's get into how to do it. The two that I've been accepted to, Forge and Human Parts, what I did for both of them was I researched first. So Forge is like a self-helpy psychology type publication, all about making yourself better tomorrow. So I was like, okay, what are some things that I'm interested in, some questions that I have about how I can improve myself, and what's the solid research behind it? Because I noticed all the stories in Forge had links to peer-reviewed citation papers, and they had to quotes from scientists. Like, it was really a science-heavy publication. So I did my research, I wrote the story, and I submitted it. For Human Parts, it was a similar experience. They're not scientific at all. Human Parts is very, very emotional. It's very vulnerable. So I was reading through some stories on theirs and I was like, this is reminding me of an emotional, vulnerable kind of life story of mine. So I wrote that and I submitted it. Both times I did something in my email that I think might have helped. So I started off, the first line wasn't the typical, hey, you should read my story because I love this publication. It was a hook. I was like, when I started doing this, da-da-da-da-da. So I was hoping that they would see that and they'd be like, yeah, okay, that's great. Caveat, I've done this a couple of other times with the same in-house Medium publications and I've not gotten anywhere with it. So it's hard to say whether it was just luck, whether it was my pitching style, or just the story itself that helped me get accepted. So I wrote the pitch. I then just sat back and waited, and I know for Forge, they don't have a particular deadline, so I said if 2 weeks have gone by and I haven't heard back, I'll self-publish. Same with Human Parts, they gave you a month, and I was like, I'm not gonna wait for a month. If it's been 2 weeks, it's probably that they haven't moved ahead, so I'll publish it. And then I sat back to wait. What happened with Forge was they got back to me within 5 days, and they were like, yeah, we'd like to publish this. They made a ton of edits. I was almost a little offended because I was like, what was even the point of me writing this? You've completely changed the tone. But then I read it and I realized they hadn't changed the tone. They just highlighted what was good about it and kind of scraped away the rough edges. So it came out a much more polished, much punchier story, which was good. So Human Parts, I haven't edited it yet, so I will update you when that happens. And then they publish it the next day. For Human Parts, I've been told to wait till the end of next week, hopefully, so then I'll see what it looks like then, and I'll be able to update you then. Now, again, full disclosure, I've submitted to Human Parts, Forge, another number of other Medium in-house publications, probably 10 or 12 times, and I've only been accepted twice. That's like a 1 in 6 success rate. It's not very high. I have no idea what other people experience, but I just want to be upfront that it's not like I've submitted twice and been accepted twice. There are ups and downs, and expect to be rejected, because I was rejected a ton at first too, and it sucked. But when you do get accepted, it is all worth the effort because you get paid $200 up front, minimum guaranteed. You might get more. I got a ton of views, I got a ton of claps, I got a ton of follows. So even though I spent time writing it and it didn't go anywhere, it was worth it in the end. And yeah, you should, I think it's definitely worth introducing that into your writing strategy. So that nicely segues me into the next question from Rachel saying, what is the best strategy to be successful on Medium? Medium has gone through so many changes since I started writing on the platform nearly a year ago now, September 2018. And the only thing I can say is that my best strategy has changed so many times since writing. So to give you an example, when I started writing in September last year, there wasn't anything, there's no curation. All the advice was do follow and follow to get followers and get into the big publications, Startup, The Ascent, P.S. I Love You. So I did all that and I saw some results, and then I noticed that I was starting to go back down. I was like, Christ, I can't be going down. I've only just started. So I started experimenting, and this is what I think everybody should do. I tried new things. I tried self-publishing, I tried my own publication, I tried a bunch of different things, and I noticed that when I self-published, I was more likely to be curated. I think this is because when I self-published, I was more honest about my own writing voice. I wasn't like trying to jam my own voice into what I thought a publication would like. I was just writing stories about me, and Medium curators like that a lot. And it also allowed me to publish more frequently, so I wasn't having to wait on anyone to accept my pieces. I could just publish as and when. So October, I was writing 3 to 5 times a week. November, I wrote once a day. December, I wrote once a day. January, I was just getting comfortable and everything changed. I was writing every day, and I was noticing on the weekly earning estimate, my earnings were going down. Even though I was getting more fans, they were going down, and I was like, Christ on a hill, how much more can I do this? Like, what can I do to make this successful? So I started writing twice a day. I was publishing twice per day, and I was just trying to keep it up. And I noticed that when I increased the output of my stories, they did better. So I kept this up, publishing twice per day until March, and in March I started to get a little burned out, so I had to change my strategy again. What I started doing in March is I had enough of a back catalog of stories that I was able to republish some of my works, and I noticed when I started doing this, a lot of my older stuff was good, just not as good as it would be now if I wrote it now. So I gave it a punchier title, I gave it a better image, I really tightened up the writing, I added some more examples to length, and I noticed I started getting curated on those even when they weren't curated originally because they were better now. And it meant that I had so much more free time, so I could write better stories because I wasn't just trying to crank out content. And it meant that a lot of my older stuff got to see the light of day again in a sort of happier, better reincarnation. So take that to present day. I'm still trying to publish twice per day, but a lot of my stuff is republished, which is fine because I've got a lot of new followers now who like the chance to see my old stuff, but new. And I'm still noticing, like, you know, I still haven't tipped over the threshold of like $2,000 a month, which is my short-term goal at the moment. It's like, okay, well, what can I do? What can I change? So I started thinking, what if I write less, but write longer, bigger pieces? So this is when I started submitting to the bigger Medium publications. I started writing with Better Marketing, where I've got a column. I write with them every Tuesday. I submitted to Forge, Human Parts, Better Programming, a lot of other ones like that. And immediately I noticed a dip in my stats. I lost fans instantly because I wasn't publishing twice per day. I wasn't putting content out there as fast anymore. But then I got accepted to Forge and to Human Parts and hopefully to more later on. We'll see. So I'm hoping that those are going to kind of push me back in the right direction. I'll be able to write sustainably. I'll be able to write long, kind of heartfelt posts that mean a lot to me. and I'll still see an increase in income. So what I want you to take away from this is do not be afraid to experiment. My best advice for you now is not going to be the best advice for you in 6 months. Best practices now are going to change. Medium is changing. A year ago, curation wasn't a thing. Who knows what they're going to have in a year? Secondly, I'm bad at this, so I feel a little hypocritical, but try not to take the ups and downs too seriously. So when I started publishing twice per day, I saw an up in stats that didn't correspond to money, and I was like, oh crap, like what's it gonna take? But then as I kept doing that, as it kept accumulating, I did see an increase in money over the long term. So it's important not to get caught up in these short-term trends. It's easy to do, trust me, but just try to keep your mind on the long-term aims, the long-term goals. Are you doing better than you were 6 months ago? If so, you're doing great. If not, try to experiment. And finally, yeah, just try new things. Try things nobody's advised you to do. Try things that you think are too big for you to do. Don't wait for someone else to give you permission. Just go ahead and have a go at it. So for example, I started writing in different tags. My thinking was maybe I've like kind of exhausted the readers in tags of like relationships and love, and maybe I can try to get into like science and programming. And I found that it worked. When I tried that, I got a ton of fans, I got a ton of views, and I saw a short-term spike in my fans. So yeah, try new things. Don't wait for permission. Go ahead and do it, and you will see improvements. So to summarize, don't try to stay flexible about what your best practice is. Don't take the ups and downs too seriously. Try to keep a long-term view and try new things. Don't be afraid to try things that nobody's told you to do before. Don't be afraid to try things that you think you're not good enough for. Just go ahead and give it a try. Thank you so much for watching. That brings me to the end of this Sunday's video. Hopefully you learned a bit. Hopefully you're inspired to submit